Hey guys, it's your best fight friends. I'm Kelsey. This is Rachel, but she's not. Hi, I'm Rachel. And that's Steven. And Steven's here to talk about stories of the week. Hey Steven, how's it going?
Good, Kelsey. What's going on?
Man, I was so excited about stories of the week, and let me tell you why, Steven. I'm gonna go first this time, and here's why. This story of the week, I combined the two things that I wanted to do. We never do preview shows, even on Heavy on UFC, our Facebook live videos. If you haven't checked those out, make sure you go there and watch us there. But Steven, we never do previews for that, and we don't really, Rachel and I don't do them here on the show either. But I'm gonna connect my story of the week to the UFC 260 main event, Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. My story of the week is this. Can you believe that Stipe Miocic is the underdog? He's arguably the greatest UFC heavyweight, maybe MMA heavyweight ever. He was the underdog in the Daniel Cormier rematch, the first one. He was the underdog in the second rematch, the third fight. Won both of those fights. When he beat Cormier for the second time, they said, "Oh, he's the best ever." Then he goes in to fight a guy that he's already beaten pretty convincingly, by the way, and he's an underdog again. Steven, why does that make sense?
Well, I think it makes sense from a casual fan perspective, where you're like, man, like this, people like fall in love with the knockout artist, right? They're like, man, this guy can shut the lights out of anyone. Like, how do you pick against somebody that all he has to do is land one fist and it's over? I think it's insane. I'm picking Stipe for that fight. I mean, Francis can absolutely win the fight, but my pick is Stipe. I mean, to me, he's the greatest MMA heavyweight of all time. Fedor's obviously in that conversation. C-level Cain Velasquez is in that conversation. But I think Miocic is the greatest heavyweight of all time in mixed martial arts. And I'm not surprised by the betting line because, like I said, I think that people just fall in love with the knockout. Francis Ngannou is a terrifying figure physically and everything. So, man, but I don't know. I think maybe throw a little bit of money at this is not the worst idea.
I mean, if you tell me as a bettor, I could get plus money on the greatest heavyweight ever, who already beat this guy and didn't beat this guy with a single punch. I mean, he beat him. I mean, he beat him like 4 out of the 5 rounds convincingly, right? I think the first round was pretty close, but once Stipe started dumping him to the ground and getting, taking over the fight, he won it convincingly. He gets Francis again, but I am super intrigued by this fight. I think whoever really arguably as a bettor, if you're a bettor out there, if you get plus money on either one of these guys, right? Because I could see both of these guys winning the fight. I don't know who wins. I didn't want to pick anybody, but you know what? I believe that Stipe Miocic deserves to be the pick. I don't know if he wins, Steven, but I think he deserves to be the pick just because of what he's done, how great he's been. Both of these guys are super lovable. Both of these guys are super terrifying heavyweights, but Stipe just has so much skill and he's so impressive. I don't know. I think that if he wants to keep Francis from landing that big uppercut, that he can do that.
I mean, if I were a bettor for this, I actually wouldn't throw money on this because it is, to me, like it's a close, it can go both ways. I mean, Stipe can do what he did last time, especially if it's a Stipe that comes in that looked as good as he did against Cormier in their third fight. I'm sure you'll be a little heavier than that fight, but I don't know, man. It's a tough one to pick. Anyone can get done. The issue with Ngannou is we've only seen him for like less than 2 minutes in his last 4 fights, which is super impressive. I mean, he's knocking out people like Velasquez and like Blades, but I mean, we haven't seen all that much to think that his wrestling is going to be good enough to keep himself off his back or off the cage. Super, super exciting fight, man. Like this is exciting.
Well, it's a good thing because almost none of the other fights are going to be on the card.
I know it's crazy. We're buying a 1 fight card pay-per-view, and I'm all in.
Yeah, I'm all in too. So that's my story of the week. I'm glad that we can combine them into a secret / preview show of the big fight. I love heavyweight, whether it's boxing or MMA. I love heavyweight championship fights. Now, Steven, what's your story of the week?
Well, speaking of the heavyweight championship, one heavyweight contender who's never fought at heavyweight before, Jon Jones, who right now looks to be the number 1 contender. Dana White said multiple times that he will receive the title shot against the winner of Miocic and Ngannou 2. Has nothing to do with that, though. What it has to do with Jon Jones's MMA prowess and how great he's been throughout his career, and how he feels insulted and how he's felt insulted ever since October when Khabib Nurmagomedov defeated Justin Gaethje and then retired from the sport. If you guys remember, when Khabib defeated Gaethje, he retired and also said, hey, next week, I want to be the #1 ranked pound for pound fighter in the UFC. The rankings update, and guess what? Khabib's the #1 male pound for pound. Who's the guy that held that spot for a long time? Jon Jones. He bumped down to #2. If you guys remember, Jon Jones was not happy about it. He went on to Twitter, he went on to social media, and he many tweeting tirades. He went on saying, like, look at my record, look at the longevity of my career, look at all the former champions I've beat. I've won, 10 plus title fights. He wasn't happy about it. Okay, now fast forward a few months, Khabib and Dana have that talk in Vegas. Dana finally comes out and says, okay, Khabib's retired, 29-0. Khabib puts out another social media post, kind of like another retirement, even though he already retired. This was another like official retirement, kind of, depends how you view it. But Jon Jones decided that he wanted to pay tribute to Khabib Nurmagomedov by posting quite the meme and then deleting it, right? Probably minutes after. Jon Jones posted a picture of this guy celebrating with a gold medal hanging from him, and it has Khabib's name on it. So he's pretending it's Khabib. And then this guy is popping bottles. He's drinking champagne on the podium. But lo and behold, there's like 6 other podium steps that are higher than his. And it's all of these former UFC champions that have won more title fights than Khabib. And then Jones wrote, and to me, it sounds a little sarcastic. Jones wrote, nothing wrong with going out on top. Enjoy retirement, kid. Even though picture clearly depicts Khabib not on top. So I was like a little interesting from Jones. And then he deleted it right after. So obviously he wanted it to get out there, but then he's like, okay, maybe this shouldn't stay out here for too long. But the internet always wins. The internet caught it. And then I wrote an article about it.
He's so funny, Jon Jones, to me, because there's really no reason for him to do this. He's got millions of fans out there that would, somebody probably created that, right, on his behalf. But it seems like there are people out there that would make that argument for him. On his behalf, let's say that Kelsey's a fan of Jon Jones. I think it's ridiculous, too, that Khabib leapfrogged Jon Jones, who's been fighting in championship fights since he was 23 years old. That's a long time, almost 10 years ago. He's been doing this for a decade. However, I also think it's a little silly when fighters get so actively engaged in caring about arbitrary things like pound for pound lists, which really pound for pound lists have no meaning. Nobody can really, and this goes into boxing too, nobody can really define what a pound for pound list is supposed to be, how people are supposed to rank on them. And then on top of that, just with the UFC's rankings in general, do you know how they work, Steven? Because I don't. It seems like that it's not a legitimate ranking system, is what I'll say. I'll say that there are media people involved. I don't know who they are. They don't put their names to their rankings. I have no visibility into how these things are done. So to me, that just tells me that it's not like a real thing. It's just a UFC controlled thing.
I think when you're someone like Jones who's chasing greatness, people talk about the pound for pound rankings, right? It's a very relevant subject. He wants to be on top of that because he views himself as the greatest fighter ever. If he's getting knocked down a peg, I'm not surprised that someone like Jones, who looks at himself as the greatest, gets a little annoyed when he doesn't think that he was rightfully dropped down a peg. And with Khabib, I believe that I think Jones should be #1 as well. I think Khabib recently has been way more dominant than Jon Jones, right? Khabib, his last 3 wins which were all title defenses. He submitted 3 guys, 3 of the top lightweights, right? 3 top 5 guys. Jones, his last few fights, he fought Reyes, went to a unanimous decision, but it was a contested unanimous decision. A lot of people scored it for Reyes. Before that, fought Thiago Santos, which went to a split decision for Jones, but a lot of people disputed that as well. So recently, Khabib's been more dominant, but yeah, man, for Jones's 10-year whatever career in the UFC, look at the names he's beaten, how he's beaten them. I mean, to me, still the #1 pound for pound guy on the list.
Yeah, it's got to be #1. He's #1 to me, I think, almost inarguably, I mean, he's at the top of the all-time great list, right? Like he's at least in that conversation. There's only like a handful of people that can be that. I know that as a human being, it frustrates him as a person, but I don't know what good it does. Although, I mean, we're talking about him, right? He's good at drawing interest, and he knows how to do that. So,
Jon has not fought since February 2020, and I still write articles about him weekly. He's very good at staying relevant in the sport. Good on him. And I don't blame him for getting upset. I also think that it's funny that he likes to post things and delete them. That's what he does all of the time.
I know, so him and Connor does that too.
Oh yeah. Nate Diaz as well.
Maybe that's a hallmark of greatness. Should we be doing more of that?
Yes, we should be writing articles, posting them, deleting them instantly.
Wonder who would be my big enemy. We'll have to figure all that out. Well, hey, Steven, I always love having you on our show to talk about the story of the week. If you guys don't follow Steven on Twitter, make sure you're doing that. And of course, follow both of our work. The easiest way to do that is on Heavy on UFC's Facebook page. It's Heavy on UFC. We'll leave a link in the show notes. Make sure you click, share, and read all of our great articles. We cover mostly UFC, but you know what? We'll cover whatever you want to read about.
Not everything.
Not everything, but almost everything. Anyway, he's Steven. Rachel is technically right here. I'm Kelsey, and this is Real Talk.